thank you so much for the opportunity. In fact, I thought when you asked me to do this, how that's such an honour, because there are things that I've actually wanted to know as well. So that opportunity is just exceptional, and thank you for putting yourself at our disposal, not just to myself, but to those that will either listen to this recording or alternatively those that are here today. So Michael, I'm not sure when it was, but I'm sure it was a few years back, that somewhere along the line you got started. What was it that got you started, and started on what exactly? Whereabouts do you see yourself as being the origins of when you started to move towards where you are today? Where's the beginning of the path?
Wow. Well, my first profession was ministry.
Right.
So I went through seminary and got a master's degree in biblical language and literature because I just want to save the world.
Right.
And I thought that was the way. And I went through there, and then I found out that my personality did not fit the job description. I took a church and was fired within the first 12 months. The next church I was fired in 9 months. The next church I was fired in 9 months. The next church I lasted 10 months. And so I got fired 5 times.
At least you're consistent, I've heard that.
And then, because I really thought the job description was to find truth and share it.
Right.
And then I found out the job description is make us feel comfortable with what we already know.
Okay.
And so I just did not fit at all. And so with all that, then I went through a divorce because the marriage could not handle all of that. And so then I went to counseling for me. Because at first I thought, what's wrong with these people? And the second time, oh, what's wrong with these people? And then the third time, this isn't working too well. The fourth time, could it be me? And the fifth time, yeah. So I realized that there was something that I was not able to make that happen. I wanted to know my psychology and why I could not make that work. And so I started. I got some help from some people, and then I read everything Sigmund Freud ever wrote. I read everything Adler wrote. I looked at Jung a little while, but after I read his biography of having 2 psychotic episodes, I decided I don't want to know more about Jung. So I just went through looking for psychologies, and of course it was those older psychologies. I finally found rational emotive therapy, and I got certified in RET, and then I met Roland May, met several other people in trainings and things, and realized I needed to go back. And I thought I was too old to go back to university. I was 27 or something.
That's way too old.
Way too old. So I waited another 5 years. Because I was too old.
Yeah.
And so then I went back and got a degree in human resources because I wanted a business degree. And then I got my master's in clinical psychology and started to practice. And so I was in the field of psychology when I found NLP. And NLP filled in the details.
Okay.
So I got really excited about filling in the details, and that started opening up about modeling excellence, because I really had not thought about that.
What's the approximate year? What's the timeline of this?
In the 19th, my last church was 75,
right.
76, and so then I was really studying psychology through the 70s, and so in the 80s, in 1985, I moved to Colorado, became a licensed professional counselor there with the master's program. So, and then in 86, I started hearing about NLP, and I started studying NLP in 87, 88.
How did it start to fill in the details that you were talking about earlier?
Well, I knew RET deals with beliefs and how that beliefs run our programs, and I knew that. But then when I heard about, well, beliefs could be visual and auditory and kinesthetic, and fill in those details, and seeing the power of those languages of the mind to run the brain, so that just filled in tremendous detail. So I got really excited about being able to do work so much quicker, and it really just sped everything up.
So is it reasonably accurate that details attract you then? Is that what happened there?
It wasn't the details, it was that it was efficient, it was effective.
Right, so those were the higher frames then.
Yeah.
Efficiency and effectiveness, and the details were just part of helping you get there.
Yeah.
So you were learning NLP. Who was the first trainer? Who did you start with?
Well, Richard Bandler is where I did all my trainings. A young brother, a duet, came to my hometown of Grand Junction, and they were doing a concert. And one brother could not speak with his mouth, and so he signed, and his other brother interpreted, but he could sing. Because he had damaged some part of his brain that he could not speak, but the other part was still active, and they sang. And so at the break, I talked to the other brother and said, well, when you're not doing this, what do you do? And he said he used to be a therapist. And he was like 33, and I said, used to? And he said, well, when I could cure phobias in 10 minutes, I got tired. And so I walked away, said, you know, this thing, he's crazy. So I saw him again, and I said, okay, how would you cure phobia in 10 minutes? He said, you haven't read Frogs and Princes. I said, what's that? And he said, it's in that book. And I said, well, just give me I can do it in 3 months or 6 months. I can do a hierarchy of fears and relaxation, but I don't know how to do it in 10 minutes. He said, it's in the book. And he wouldn't tell me.
Right.
So the next day I went and bought the book. And I was reading this stuff, and about 5 days later I had a person in for phobia. And he said, is there any quicker way? And I said, well, I've been reading this book, but I don't think it'll work. But I'll read it to you. So I read the movie Rewind, the phobia cure. I read that, and I read the last line. Okay, now try really hard to have it again. And he goes, I can't. And I'm sure that my mouth was dropping much more than his. And as soon as I said, well, try really hard now. And when he couldn't get the phobia back, I go, I've got to know this stuff. This is effective, this is efficient, this changes people really at the structural level. And so I chased down Richard Bandler in San Diego and went out and did my trainings.
So you've got efficiency and effectiveness that literally drove you towards learning more and more, and you learnt through Richard. How far did you travel and or journey with Richard's learning? Whereabouts did you go with that?
Well, I through the master prac and the trainers, and then I spent some time in San Diego and San Francisco where he was living. Wrote 2 or 3 books for him, took some videos and transcribed them. We were working on the Society of NLP, and I was working on the directory with him at that time.
So those of us that know you know that there is also a prolific writing side of you. Had that actually started to begin back then? Were you dabbling in writing? Were you actually well-grounded? Where was that at that time?
I've been writing all through my life, but it would take me months and months to write one article. And I wrote my first book, took me 8 years, and that was published in '85 on emotions. And so when I found NLP, I write to learn. So when I was doing my prac and master prac, I was taking notes. And then some of the participants wanted some of the notes, so I had actually brought not only my laptop, but a little printer, because I was printing off and filling in the details each day, and they were seeing I was getting 4 or 5 pages a day of notes. And by the 6th, 7th, 8th day, I had 20, 30 pages of notes, and somebody gave them to Beverly, who was the manager of NLP Products and Promotions at the time.